I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's talk about Ukrainegate. And I think this is falling apart, this whole thing. I'll be stunned if they take this to an actual impeachment, other than the inquiry that they've already, that Pelosi has already announced. I can't see this going any further, but who knows? The Democrats are so unhinged and they're so out of control that, anything is possible. But Alexander, as we said in prior videos, I think it's all but confirmed that Schiff is the driving force behind this. That Schiff most definitely, in our opinion, in our assessment, had a hand in drafting that whistleblower complaint. And what I'm going to do right now, Alexander, is read you like 4 or 5 titles from Zero Hedge that kind of sum up the news of the day regarding the Ukrainegate story, Schiff, Pelosi, and how this narrative is really coming undone. So, and you can comment on all these headlines, maybe tie them together, build an overall theme to them. So here's the first headline, Alexander. Schiff and New York Times do damage control over sneak peek at CIA whistleblower complaint. Trump says Schiff wrote it. Here is the next headline, Alexander. McCarthy demands reckless Pelosi suspend impeachment inquiry until she defines procedures. The next headline. They call that a payoff. Trump says China should investigate Biden's over billions taken out of country. Another headline, this one's my personal favorite. Will definitely interfere in 2020. Just don't tell anybody. Putin mockingly tells NBC reporter. We're not done yet. Another headline, Alexander. This is all like a 24-hour news cycle, by the way. Pelosi flat out lies. Claims Schiff used Trump's own words in fabricated Ukraine call parody. And that has to do with Stephanopoulos, an ABC News interview with Pelosi, where she claimed what Schiff said was actually true and not a parody. So, Alexander, that's kind of the 24-hour news cycle on Ukrainegate. Get into it.
Well, can I first of all begin by saying that, there's a famous quote, and I think it's from Karl Marx, that history repeats itself. The first time as tragedy, the second time as farce. I don't agree with that. I think Russiagate was a farce and Ukrainegate as an even greater farce. And you see that in these headlines. Let's start with the very first one. Trump, and not just Trump, lots of other people now saying that not only did Schiff have sight of the whistleblower complaint in advance, but in fact he saw it before it was actually submitted in the form that we've seen. And of course Trump is now saying that he actually drafted it. Well, you heard all that on the Duran first. We were actually saying this in an earlier video, which you can find on our channel. I mean, all the facts, all the fingers point to Adam Schiff as the person who has been orchestrating this thing. He was running Russiagate. He was creating this fictitious narrative of collusion between Donald Trump and the Russians throughout Russiagate. He was relying on Christopher Steele's dossier, that crazy, discredited, unverified dossier, to prove it. Now he's trying to create an entirely different but equally fictitious narrative on the strength of this so-called whistleblower complaint. I say so-called because, the man who's supposedly behind it is not a whistleblower. As we've discussed, he's not actually exposing malpractice by the CIA, and it increasingly is looking as if it's not even his complaint, because it's increasingly looking as if none other than Adam Schiff himself drafted it. And we see that Adam Schiff is a man of tremendous fictitious skills. He goes off and creates this completely ludicrous parody of the kind of things that Donald Trump, in his opinion, ought to have said. But of course, Donald Trump didn't actually say them, but Nancy Pelosi, of all people, the person who didn't read the transcript, didn't want to see the transcript of the actual conversation between Zelensky and Trump, she seems to believe that, in fact, that was what he said. That was what Trump said. I mean, as I said, if this is not an utter and complete farce, then please tell me what is. And here we see Vladimir Putin, a man with a wicked sense of humor, because he has a wicked sense of humor, and he's already teasing the Americans around all of this. And who can blame him? I mean, for 3 years we've been hearing nothing else about Russia, 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 Russia. Now suddenly it's Ukraine. Trump is supposedly colluding with Ukraine to get re-elected in 2020. It is every bit as nonsensical and ridiculous as Russiagate, the story that he was colluding with Russia. The Democrats can't get their story straight. Was it Ukraine? Was it Russia? Remember, Russia and Ukraine are enemies. So when you look at all of this, when you break all this down, I completely agree with you. The whole thing is falling apart. Where I don't agree with you, I'm sorry to say, is that I think the Democrats are so deeply implicated in all this now that I think if they pull back at this point, they will enrage and demoralize their own electoral base. And I'm afraid that I don't think they're going to do it. So what are they left with? A disintegrating story, a transcript of a conversation, which, let me repeat again, there's nothing wrong. No impropriety is revealed in that transcript. That transcript, as more and more people are saying, Andrew McCarthy on National Review, Gerard Baker in the Times of London, I've sent you the articles, more and more of them are pointing out the truth. That conversation was not about the Bidens. It was about Barr and Durham's investigation into Russiagate. The Democrats have nothing there. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to rig the whole process. And that's what the McCarthy, Republican McCarthy in the House of Representatives, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the way in which they're trying to fix this whole process. And it's striking that amongst the things they're doing, firstly, they're not letting the House of Representatives itself vote on whether to set up an impeachment inquiry. Nancy Pelosi has simply come along and said that there should be an impeachment inquiry. And there are attempts to freeze the Republicans out so that the Republicans are not being allowed, it seems, either to see all the evidence, I'm talking about the House Republicans, or to question the witnesses that the Democrats are calling. And one of them is Kurt Volker, who was the U.S. Special Representative to Ukraine. I, who follow the Ukraine story very closely, can say straight away that Kurt Volker was a very close associate of former Senator McCain, is bad news. He did everything he possibly could to obstruct peace moves in Ukraine and to back the hardliners in Ukraine, including the former president Petro Poroshenko, to the hilt. The reason he has resigned is not because of Ukrainegate or because of this telephone conversation between Zelensky and Trump, or because of whatever Giuliani was doing in Ukraine. It is because the Ukrainians themselves have now rejected this proposal that Volker was pushing very hard for, which is for a peacekeeping force to be sent to eastern Ukraine in order to bring it back under Ukrainian control. The Ukrainians themselves have dropped that demand, leaving Volker high and dry. And so the result is he's resigned. The Democrats don't want all that brought out. They want Volker to be interviewed by the Republicans in a very restricted format so that they can try and shape the questions and the comments that he is going to make. They don't want a repeat of the Mueller catastrophe or the Lewandowski catastrophe. They want to control this process because they don't have a case. And what's the proof that they don't have a case? They haven't even yet identified a crime. What crime is Donald Trump supposed to have committed? There's been some suggestion that by seeking a favor from Zelensky, he breached campaign finance laws. I have already said that is nonsense because that misrepresents the purpose of this conversation, which was to get Ukraine's help with an ongoing Department of Justice inquiry. But beyond that, that whole theory is fanciful and falls apart even before it started because the 2020 campaign is not yet underway and Donald Trump is not yet even formally a candidate. So how can he have breached campaign finance laws in a campaign that doesn't even yet exist? Putting that aside, there's a very deep and thorough discussion by Andrew McCarthy, a brilliant federal prosecutor, writes on National Review, in which he goes through all the arguments about this being a breach of campaign finance law, accepting, by the way, that there was supposedly some kind of discussion about the Bidens in this call, which, as I said, isn't, as it happens, true. And Andrew McCarthy says this doesn't really hold water. It was actually considered by Mueller and Andrew Weissman during the Mueller investigation when they were trying to get Donald Trump Jr. on the meeting with this Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya in Trump Tower, and they decided that it just wouldn't hold water, and this is an exactly analogous situation. In fact, it's a weaker situation than that one. So they have no crime. They're rigging the process because they want to conceal the fact they don't have a crime. The narrative they're peddling is false, and they're trying to restrict access to the witnesses and to freeze House Republicans out of the process. As you correctly said, this whole thing is falling apart. They're going to press on with it.
Okay, so you think they're all in, and that's bad news for the Democrats. It's bad news for Biden. I think it all but assures a Trump victory in 2020.
Yes.
There's no way the Senate is going to impeach Trump.
No.
And it looks like the Democrats have fallen into a trap they made themselves out of their own derangement. I even see, Alexander, the mainstream media puppets of the Democrats, like George Stephanopoulos, who was a Clinton, who's a Clinton insider, and now is running the ABC. Now he's running the ABC morning show. But even he questioned Pelosi's sanity in one of the headlines that I read, where Pelosi was saying, no, what Adam Schiff said was not parody. It was exactly, he was exactly stating what Donald Trump said. And even Stephanopoulos was looking at her like, I can't even spin this. I mean, even the mainstream media puppets, a direct arm of the Democrat neoliberal establishment, even they're having a hard time keeping this together. And then you have an Adam Schiff who, is now common knowledge, I would say, that he is the person behind the story and behind the complaint. They're having a hard time, keeping this thing together.
Oh, I think this is going to be an absolute disaster for the Democrats. I mean, Donald Trump is already having a field day, calling quite publicly now on Ukraine and China to investigate the Bidens, because he knows perfectly well that the Bidens have been up to all kinds of things. And so he's now putting the Bidens first, he's pointing out that that's where the real corruption is. And at the same time, this impeachment inquiry itself, as I said, is going to go nowhere. It is unraveling when people are trying to rig the process in the way that Pelosi is trying to rig the process. That tells you straight away that it isn't going to work. And when she and Schiff unquestionably, I've no doubt about this, are the people who've sort of engineered this whole thing, when they're having to pretend that this parodic comments that Schiff created are the actual words of Donald Trump, when we all know that they are not, then the thing becomes even more ridiculous. I mean, we are now in a situation where a completely farcical, fictitious story, something straight out, a bad B movie, a bad B Hollywood movie, is now being projected as truth in what is supposed to be a judicial process. Well, of course it's going to fall apart. And as you quite rightly say, it's going to help Donald Trump immeasurably going into the 2020 election, because he's going to say, the Democrats are after me all the time. They won't let me govern.
He's already saying coup. He's already saying coup.
He's already coup. He's already going to say, I mean, let's say that there is a problem, that there is a recession in the economy. He's now got the perfect alibi. He's going to be able to say the reason there is a recession is not because of anything I've done. It's because the Democrats won't let me govern, and they're undermining confidence in the United States. So they've already given him an alibi for any problems in the economy. And I also predict that a lot of people in the House, Democrats in the House, in districts which in 2016 voted Republican, are now going to start to get extremely worried, because from their point of view, they're going to see a Trump victory hurtling towards them, and they're going to wonder what's going to happen to them, whether they'll be swept away in what is increasingly going to look like, I predict, in a few months' time, like a Trump victory. So they're getting this wrong from every possible angle. But I think that they're too deep in. As I said, if they pull back now, after all they've said, after the way they've primed the media, they've got no one to blame this time. They can't say, well, Doddery, Mueller didn't quite get it together, because it was they themselves who rushed to set up this inquiry, this impeachment inquiry, before the actual facts were known.
And I can't help, Alexander, but go back to the title I read about Putin, where he's kind of mocking what's going on in the US. And I think that Putin's mocking of this entire thing is representative of how the world is now viewing what's happening in the United States. This is the damage, once again, that Pelosi and the DEMS have done to the reputation of the United States and the US's ability going forward to conduct meaningful, serious diplomacy. And I think even though Putin is saying it jokingly and he's trolling them, there's a lot of truth to his statement of saying, well, we are going to meddle in the 2020, no doubt about it, nudge, 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 wink, wink. I think the whole world is kind of saying, God, 3 years of Russiagate, and now you go on to Ukrainegate. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is what probably every world leader is saying at this point in time.
Well, every world leader is saying to themselves, firstly, two things.
With the exception of Trudeau, maybe.
Maybe, right. I mean, every world leader, except possibly Trudeau, who's got, let's remember, his own problems. But, apart from Trudeau, every world leader is going to be saying to themselves two things. Firstly, that the United States has gone stark raving bananas. Some of them, like Putin, are going to tease and joke about it because, of course, Putin, through no wish of his own, but that's how he's become. He's now an adversary of the United States, not an enemy of the United States, but an adversary. I mean, he's been demonized. His country, Russia, has been sanctioned. He's been accused of all sorts of things. So he's enjoying all the chaos in Washington, which he hasn't created. It's the Democrats are creating all this chaos. Other world leaders are going to be absolutely, horrified, but probably by now, they're going to be saying to themselves, well, the United States is just politically falling apart, and they've probably been thinking that for a long time already, because let's face it, Russiagate was already pretty crazy. This may be a level of insanity even beyond Russiagate, but they've had 3 years to realize how utterly dysfunctional and crazy the system is. But beyond that, and I think this is I want to repeat this, no world leader now can telephone the President of the United States and feel confident that what he and she says to the President of the United States is not going to be leaked in the American media and used in American political battles. That is true whether the President is Donald Trump or someone else. Because once this is done, once this precedent of using private comments in personal, private diplomatic conversations is broken in this way, it's impossible to put it back altogether. The Republicans, let's say a Democrat is elected in 4 years, in a year's time, or 4 years later, or whenever. Let's say it's Elizabeth Warren, just for example, and there are Republicans listening in. Why should they not do what the Democrats, what Adam Schiff has just done? So that's already going to make more and more world leaders very, very nervous about having any kind of high-level diplomatic conversations with the President of the United States, who is supposedly the head of the American government. So this is a shambles, however you look at it. And Trump derangement syndrome is causing it. They won't leave this man, Donald Trump, alone to get on with his job. Maybe he does it well, maybe he does it badly. The way to defeat him is to beat him in an election. It seems they can't do that, or think they can't do that. So because of that, they resort to all of these things, and they're trashing their whole system of government and their whole legal system and constitutional system in the process. It's nuts.
Yeah, and they tried to pull Australia into it as well after Ukraine, and Australia was like, look, we'll have none of it. There was no coercion, there was no pushing. We'll cooperate with the DOJ. That's that. So I mean, they've taken it to a whole different level. Russia, Ukraine, they're eyeing any world leader now, even world leaders who are part of the Five Eyes, for example. They're even going after them. So I mean, they've lost their minds.
If somebody's obsessed with something, they will always lose sight of what they're doing. Even, the amazing, bizarre thing is, Nancy Pelosi herself seemed to grasp the fact when she talked to Jerry Nadler a few weeks ago and said to him, "You're behaving like Captain Ahab in Moby Dick." And yet, here we see that Nancy Pelosi herself has fallen for this.
I want to get, that's my next question, actually. Yeah, that's my next question that's my final question is, I can't help but think that after, Corey Lewandowski just embarrassed the hell out of Nadler, made him look like a child, and Nancy Pelosi had that talk with Nadler, if somehow she said, you know what, there's no chance for us to win in 2020, I've got a bunch of idiots, Adam, looking at Adam Schiff, Adam, let's take your plan. I'm desperate. Let's activate this whistleblower complaint plan that, you pitched to me maybe before the Corey Lewandowski testimony or something like that. I mean, I just can't help but think that Nancy Pelosi was, looking at Nadler and saying, let's try to give this Russiagate thing one more go. It completely got obliterated during that testimony. And then she said, you know what? There's nothing else left. I have to go with, idiot number 2. Which is Adam Schiff and his his idea.
I think that's absolutely right. I'm going to make another point, actually, and I'm sure there'll be many people who don't agree. But I think that Trump derangement syndrome has taken such a hold of the Democratic Party and of its electoral base and several House Democrats, many House Democrats, that I think Nancy Pelosi was beginning to worry that if she didn't go along with this, sooner or later there would be a challenge in her position as Speaker. And I think it was getting that bad. I mean, it's been growing all the time, and I think that is what you've described is exactly her calculation. I don't think she really has any genuine belief in this thing. How can she? She's not a stupid woman. I mean, I've followed Nancy Pelosi now for a long time. She comes across to me as quite a wily politician, but she is surrounded by nutcases. Schiff, Nadler, all of these people, the squad. They're all on this issue of Donald Trump. They've gone stark raving bananas. And so she says to herself, well, I wash my hands of this thing. They want their impeachment inquiry. They can get it. At least I remain speaker for the time being.
Yeah, very well said. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran, thank you very much. Guys, please click on that subscribe button. Smash that like button. Remember to share this channel with everybody you know. YouTube keeps on pushing us down and makes our channel very, very difficult to find, so your help is really appreciated. You can also get a copy of this video on Soundcloud and on iTunes in audio format, so look for us there as well. And please donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. Your donations help out this channel a whole lot. And of course, you can get merchandise from the Duran at the Duran shop. And you can pick up all kinds of great stuff like magic mugs and magic shirts. The Lavrov mug and the Alpha Force mug that Alexander is holding. I changed up the dialogue a bit towards the end because YouTube Alexander is really coming down hard on us. And I think the closer we get to 2020, they're going to come down on all kinds of channels, like ours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we see how desperate people are getting, and you can see this with, as I said, this impeachment inquiry on an absurd issue, and of course, all sorts of other people are now becoming increasingly concerned not to allow what happened in 2016 to happen again, and that's what we have to. At the Duran, that's what we are facing. So how can you help us? You can help us by all kinds of things. You can spread the word about our channel, share our videos with people, and of course you can buy our mugs. Come to love this mug, Sergei Lavrov, because here you have the foreign minister of Russia, a real grown-up, a genuine adult. You were talking about how the world must be laughing at the United States. I wonder what this man is thinking, actually, when he sees all of this. I mean, he must be saying to himself, the Congress of the United States has become, a children's playground. I mean, this is so crazy. I mean, even a lunatic asylum, maybe. I mean, this man embodies rationality and calmness and cool judgment. Now, you can probably hear my tea splashing inside because I'm currently drinking Earl Grey tea from it. But that's what I've been doing. So this is, as I said, for me, the best foreign minister in the world. And here, if Lavrov is brains, this is Russia's fist, or the spear of its, the point of its lance. It's the Alpha Force, one of the best special forces units in the world. Guys who did extraordinary things. The most famous incident that they were involved in that we know about is that a couple of dozen of them captured the palace of the presidential palace in Kabul in 1979 and defeated a force that was many times, more than 10 times stronger than themselves. And they did it because they were such superb elite troops. So that's Alpha Force, and that's their badge, and they're on this mug. So you have the brains, and you have the edge of the fist, but it's a fist that's used wisely because it's controlled by brains like this. Anyway, so those are two of my favorite mugs. You can help us by buying our mugs. You can help us by buying our shirts. Our beautiful 100% perfectly stitched cotton shirts with the all-seeing eagle of the Duran with its two heads pointing in different directions, looking at the whole world. You can see it there. and we have lots of shirts. We have these short sleeve t-shirts, we've got long sleeve t-shirts, we've got polo neck shirts, we've also got hoodies, we've got hats, we've got we've got amazing things on the Duran. Alex has been refreshing our shop with lots of great merchandise. Our competitors are very jealous of it and are trying to copy it, but ours is the absolutely real stuff. It's great stuff, as our customers say. So help the Duran, help yourselves. We need your help. Go to our shop, buy our things. Alex will tell you how to do it.
TheDuranShop.com. You will find the link in the description box down below. And also, I forgot to say, you can also find us on BitChute, guys. So look for the Duran and follow us there. I think we're at about 1,700 subs. And we're also close to 100,000 subs on YouTube. So spread the word about the channel.
Yeah.
Until next time, everybody, take care.